Good afternoon. My name is Martha Raymond, and I'm the Executive Director of the GI Cancers Alliance. And it's really my pleasure today and honor to be speaking with Steve Melen, who is a wonderful advocate for stomach cancer awareness. He's a patient mentor. He's an entrepreneur, very vast projects he's taken on in his career, very fascinating. And he is an author of a new book called Killer Graces. I've personally just ordered it from Amazon, and I cannot wait to read more of it. I read excerpts, and it's very inspirational, and I think will give all of us in the cancer community a lot more information for individuals who are newly diagnosed, those in treatment, and those in survivorship, to really showcase what it's like, kind of no holds barred, a very poignant account. And I think it's just going to be so important for the cancer community. So again, it's my pleasure to welcome Steve, stomach cancer survivor. And thanks for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me, Martha. I really am glad to be here right now. And you know, I have gone through the whole story from the beginning, middle, and end, and the end in my story is a happy ending. So that's why I'm really happy to be able to share it. It's been quite a journey for the past 12 years since I was diagnosed.
Absolutely, and like I said, we really appreciate your time today. Steve, as we start out, can you give us just a little bit of a background, how you were diagnosed? And I can only imagine that the treatment was very difficult, but just for our listeners today that, you know, maybe are newly diagnosed or they have a family member who's been newly diagnosed, just what that experience was like.
Well, okay, so I was in my 30s, in my late 30s, and when I first started to experience some discomfort that might be common to most people. It's upset stomach, little pain, little pain, little stress. There was a lot going on in my life at that time. I had switched jobs at the time. I had a new baby in my life that was 9 months old. I had been doing some work on a house that was not necessarily going as smoothly. So I had a lot of things that were stressful at the time, and life was going what I thought would be fairly smooth because married, employed, new baby. And then all of a sudden you start getting these things that the doctors are diagnosing me as, well, it's probably stress. It's take some protonics, you've got a lot going on in your life. So I didn't think the cancer word at all for the first couple visits to my doctor until I got about 9 months later, where I just decided I couldn't make it into my doctor's office, my primary care, and I ended up going to the emergency room, and they did the whole range of tests and started with blood work. I was anemic. Anemia then led to, let's do a scan. The scan turned into seeing something, and then seeing something turned into a further endoscopy, and then a CT scan. And all within 24 hours, I went from just having pain and discomfort to saying that, okay, you have cancer, you have to do something about this. And they said, you need to go in and see the specialists at the different hospitals. So it went from nothing to everything in 24 hours. So that was when I was right before my 38th birthday. I had visited a couple different hospitals to get different opinions because I didn't know. 12 years ago, I didn't have the forums that we have now. I didn't have the support groups that were out there. I had to go through my network of people and find maybe a friend of a friend. And through all of that, I discovered only one individual who just happened to be going to Stanford, who just happened to have the doctor that I was meeting with, and just happened to be my same age. And so that was the only person that I had to look at as a hope and inspiration at the time. So I didn't have a lot of places to go, but they after 3 different meetings with doctors and more endoscopies and they then wanted to have my surgery on January 30th. And I said, nope, can't have it on that day. And they said, why not? I said, that's my birthday, and I don't want, I heard there was a small chance of dying on the operating table. So I said, I don't want my death day and birthday to be the same day. And so we pushed it off 1 week. And a week later, I had my stomach removed, my spleen, half my pancreas, a third of the esophagus, and I thought that everything went smoothly for the first, it was as well as an 8-hour surgery. And then I come out of the surgery and friends and family around, and I ended up having a leak. And so I went septic from that point. So I ended up code bluing and having to, I woke up a week later strapped to my hospital bed and couldn't move because I had tried to tear everything out. So that initial, the going on that roller coaster initially, I started off in doing, loops and spins right out of the gate. But that was sort of the one low of the story, because, I then spent a few more weeks in the hospital. I came out of the hospital, and then it was prepare yourself for chemo and radiation. So that was a whole nother phase. And, and with gastric cancer and cancers across the board, you're going to receive a varying amount of treatments, maybe surgery, maybe not, maybe chemo, maybe not, maybe radiation, maybe not. I had it all. And each one was harder than I thought. And I found that at the end of my radiation, I was really, really struggling with my weight. I got down to about 95 pounds. I'm 6'1", so I had to go on a PICC line for nutrition. It was just one challenge after the next. And at that point in my life, my future, I couldn't really, it's not that I thought I was going to die. I was stressed about it, but I had a baby, a wife, and I was taking a lot of pain meds because I was in intense pain. And I didn't see my future. It kind of just, not that it was like I was going to die. It was dark, and I didn't see how I was going to come out of all this. So that was a very rough stage in my entire life.
Absolutely. And I'm sure too, for your wife, especially with, worrying so much about you, and then with a newborn, it must have been so difficult. And I know so many times, as with patients, we worry so much about our loved ones because we see, the care they give us, and we try to help make their lives better, going through everything. But I can imagine that support you had from your wife and your family and your friends was just instrumental in helping you come out the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how people go about this alone. I mean, I had the support that, now, and what I didn't realize until later on is what the stress I was putting everyone else through, really how stressed they were about me. I mean, it caused so many challenges in my marriage over time that I ended up getting divorced, and which was an unfortunate circumstance of the situation, but we get along now and I'm remarried. So like, again, the ending is great, but during that time for a few years, and when you're the patient, on the patient side, sometimes you don't see that, well, maybe you're going through the physical part of it, but there's an emotional, deep part that people around you are going through. And I was not aware of it at the time until later, but it changes things, and it's hard for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, that is very common with individuals going through a cancer diagnosis, because none of us would sign up for this. And same with the partner. And there's no rule book, there's no instruction manual. So I think that is unfortunately, very common. But like I said, I'm so glad to know that, you are on the other side and doing so well with your beautiful daughter and your wife. So I think it's remarkable all you went through. How long were you in treatment with chemotherapy and radiation?
So I got out of the hospital after a month, and then they wanted to wait about 3 months or so until I had a bit more healing of the scarring and everything. And so they started the chemo, and the chemo was in the hospital with IV. day one, and then the next 6 day were pills at home that I had to take, and that went on for I think is about 8 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks, and then we overlapped with the radiation, and the radiation was involved in that too, and the challenge with that is a lot of the stuff is cumulative. So at first, the first couple of days or whatnot, it might be okay, and then all of a sudden it just starts building on itself, and it gets harder and harder. And for me, I found that the radiation was really beating me up. And the funny thing is, I literally just ran into my radiation doctor like 3 days ago at the store, and everyone's got masks on, and I said, "Doctor, no," and he goes, "Yes." He goes, "Steve Melen, remember?" He goes, "I know who you are," and I know. And I said, he goes, I mean, it's been a long time, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I've heard people in the community talk, they still see you." And what happened on my last day, and it's actually in the book, it's I had gone in and I was crying, and I said, "Doctor, I don't know how much more I can take." And he said, "We're done." And that's all it took. Like, he saw how beaten up I was from that. And he said, and I go, "I don't want to quit early. I want to keep on fighting." And he said, "No, well, you've done more than I thought you would do. And you did 90% of what the plan was. So we almost made it. And I can see that it's taking too much out of you. So we're done today." So I had a sigh of relief, and just, and then as I go out, all the nurses signed something and gave me a little, a certificate, and I left there as my last day of radiation. And then it took about a month to just kind of heal internally after that, where I started to feel a bit better. But I still see the people involved 12 years later, and they go, "Oh my gosh, you're doing so great." So it's great to see that.
Absolutely. And I think what you said is just so important, because I think especially it's so important for patients to be their own best advocate, because being able to speak up for yourself and saying, this is, at this point, it's just too challenging, or whatever the situation might be, because we have to be our own best advocates. And so I applaud you for that, because, it's being the captain of your ship, so to speak.
Yeah.
What I mean?
It's tough either way. I mean, I want to let go and let them take care of me. But
Yep.
two, they don't have all of the answers as far as how are you feeling. So you have to make sure that you express and sometimes take a little control. But I had to let go to let them, because I figured I was in top quality hands, but they still need to know.
Absolutely. I think that's all, so important of patient-centered care, and the patient is at the center. So it's so important. One question, Steve, I'd ask is, for newly diagnosed patients, and when when you're a mentor for patients, what advice or real world experience would you give a newly diagnosed patient? I think one of the things you said that was so important to me was that, yes, we all think of the physical aspects of a cancer diagnosis, but that emotional toll, psychosocial toll is so very important. But I guess I would be curious for individuals that are listening that, maybe are newly diagnosed. Are there any kind of real world experience that, you might offer to them?
Yes. What I wasn't prepared for was, what was the amount of anxiety and stress that I would be experiencing over this. And at the time, I was given medication across the board for pain, for anxiety, for all these things, and I was very, very, very stressed about this, and I wasn't sure I was gonna make it, because the odds were against me, but I didn't really look at the odds until later. But during the time, it was really beating me up. So what is something that people try to mask and hide is the anxiety and stress and depression that people start to experience, because you start to think that well, is it all worth it? Like, am I going to make it? Should I go through these treatments? Should I? And what I did was I went to a higher level of taking the pain meds, and turned into an addiction. That was I took whatever they gave me, and then it just kept on going. And I ended up having to go to a rehab facility after, which was a whole nother set of problems. But many people don't have that, but it's something that you have to be aware of, that you're going to be stressed out. it's going to be overwhelming for you and for you're going to feel guilty that you're putting other people through this, and you just don't want to be a burden on everyone. And yet sometimes for days and weeks on end, you can't get out of bed. And that's how it was for me. Some people have it easier, which it's from what I understand, it's a bell curve of issues in responses to the treatments. Some people have very little, some people have extreme, and most of the people are in the middle with a varying range of things. And what I've noticed from the people that I'm mentoring now is everyone is scared, everyone needs a little bit of hope and inspiration. And I'm kind of like the older, further figure on that. They need to see me out there, but I'm kind of I'm 12 years out. Sometimes they need to connect with people that are also going through it with them now too. So I think in the mentorship program, it's important to find people out there with a broad range. Some people that can give you that light at the end of the tunnel, and people that are with you along the way. And because I can tell them, and in 10 minutes, they go, oh my gosh, I got more out of you in 10 minutes than I've gotten from anyone else. But then when it comes down to their day-to-day, they kind of want to have someone that's right there with them. So you're helping each other out.
Right, absolutely, makes sense for sure. So in looking forward, and like I said, with your new book, I'd love to hear a little bit more, about the book. And I think I understand probably your reasons for writing it, but I'd love to hear more. And I'd like to start too with the name of the book, Killer Graces, because I read that that's named after your first racehorse.
Yes, exactly.
Killer Grace was her name.
Killer. So I was just recovering from, this was 9 years ago, and I was just recovering from getting first 3 years out of the cancer big challenges. And I needed some sort of excitement and hope and inspiration, something in life, because things had felt like I had kind of lost everything. And so I had friends that were in the horse business, and I had been their guests for quite a while. And I just didn't want to be someone's guest anymore. I wanted to be the one who actually had part of and so I bought a small piece of a racehorse, and the first race was down in Southern California in Los Angeles. And I flew down there with my wife, and it was for Killer Graces, and it was a big, big race. And at that day, I won the race. I reconnected with my future wife, which is in the story about how that happened. And all of a sudden I found some excitement and inspiration that's out of my control, that the horse racing industry gave me something to root for, to be excited for. And so that's why I named the book after that horse, because from that point on, I then went through a couple of years of pretty wild times, but I had to get sober, and I got the racehorse, and I got more after that, but we did really, really well. And I decided, you know what? I've had some graces in my life recently, and they were very deadly, and Killer Graces just happened to come in at the time that brought all this together, and it was the beginning of a new life for me. And the horse racing was one thing that I just created, but between my wife, who was my high school sweetheart, and my daughter, who helped me give me motivation, we all need something in our life to motivate us, to keep us excited and fulfilled.
Absolutely. I love that story. And one of the things too in your book that you mentioned is that breakthrough living. And I love that expression, because I think so many times, and we all do this, it's like we're kind of waiting for that moment. And then we say, what are we waiting for? Life is short for all of us. And so I love how you just spoke about that, and with the racehorses, finding that kind of passion to be able to say, okay, this is my breakthrough. I'm going, from this point on. And I think that's wonderful. And I'm so glad you named the book after.
Yeah.
I think that's just great.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I do now that I do that I never thought I would be doing. So my life right now is really, it's weird to say that I'm as happy as I've ever been in my life. I'm 50 now. I've had some fun adventures and wild times, and I've been down, I've been up, but I don't know how. And maybe it's because I've gone through such low times that even COVID can't bring me down. You know, it's even though this whole year has been very challenging. I've been in isolation before. I've been in down periods before. I mean, it's been tough. And this year is tough for everyone. And going through treatments is tough. And I still, to this day, I have things that I'm still dealing with health-wise. I've got to get an endoscopy next week. All right, it's not something I want to do. I'm not going to die from it. And I've been through this. So, you know, the challenges still come. I don't have problems now. I just have challenges that I know I can get through with help from others. I can't go at it alone. I need help.
Absolutely. And I think to your point about, you know, obviously this year has been tough for everybody, but I do think cancer survivors are so resilient because of everything that they've gone through. And I think, especially you hear the word the new normal, and so many survivors understand what that means because things are not the same as they were prior to a diagnosis. And now, unfortunately, with COVID and everything, we're all learning that we're living in this new normal. But I do think cancer survivors are so resilient, and I've heard from so many in our community that they're like, okay, we know what to do. We know how to take care of ourselves. We are resilient, and you know, we're going to get through this. But I agree 100% with what you were saying.
That reminds me. So I do I go to an advocacy day every year on Capitol Hill, advocacy for stomach cancer, and my job there is to meet Senate and Congress members, and then briefly get the story out to help get funding for bigger projects. And you know, I don't really enjoy the political process of all of that. I don't enjoy that part, but what I did come out of that is that people who make it through this cancer struggle, they have a new light in their life, and they want to give back to society and help others. And I feel that there's so many people that I have met through this that are now doing better, that want to do more for other people. So so I was explaining to these Senate and Congress people that, you know, if you help people survive and help the funding, you're going to create a whole bunch of people that are going to want to give back and be more productive in society. They're not going to sit back and just take. They're going to want to give back. So that was what I took from all the people I've met through being a survivor over these 12 years, is people are really wanting to do more for other people, and you kind of stop being as selfish maybe as I might have been before and want to help others.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, resonates with so many in the cancer community. And I think you realize that the small things are just that. They're small things. They don't matter. And some people never learn that, and that's fine. But I do think for survivors, cancer survivors, you get it. You know, you don't waste your time on things that just don't matter in the big scheme of life. So I agree with you there. I think I should also call out that so much of the work you do is with one of our partners, Debbie's Dream Foundation, just an amazing stomach cancer organization. They help patients with research, and you were mentioning the Capitol Hill days and things like that. They're just a great partner with us with GI Cancers Alliance. So I wanted to be sure to give them a shout out as well. I know you mentor with them, and I think you're on their board of directors.
Yes, yeah, I'm on the board. I'm a patient mentor too. And I throw fundraisers. I do it at the racetrack because I have horses. So I would get people to a day at the races. We didn't do it this year because of COVID, but I've been doing that. So I try in whatever way I can. It's hard and it's a lot of work, but I found that I really do get a lot out of it personally, and it makes me feel, it's like, this is what I think maybe why I'm here, is to help others and get through the stressful part. And that's just what I didn't have. I didn't have a group like that when I was going through it. So, you know, I mean, we all need some support and guidance and support groups somewhere, and that's what I use right now.
Yep, and I do think too, it's that sense of community, and that's one of our hopes, is that individuals watching this, you know, who may be alone, they may be struggling, you know, in your words, I know will provide a lot of support and encouragement for them, which is just So important. Steve, in closing, let us know how we can get your book, because I want to be sure, like I said, I ordered it from Amazon.com through your website, but can you give us
Yes.
how we can all get that copy?
Okay, yeah, so it just came out a month ago, and I have it over. This is what it looks like, right? It's called Killer Graces. It has a picture. This is me at a race, and I just won a race, and someone took a picture of me going to the winner's circle. So that's how I pulled that photo off. But it's on Amazon, it's in Kindle, and it's in paperback here, and it's only been out for a month. But so far, what people have reached out across the board who didn't know me or know me since I was 5 or 10 years old are very, they loved it. So I don't want to say I loved it because it's my work and I spent a lot of time on it, but they tell me that everything that really helped them and maybe made them just stop and think about their own lives and appreciate what they have. And that's the important thing. It's not a self-help book. It's a story, 5 different stories of adoption, addiction, cancer, all those things. So it's more of you get a laugh too in it. I mean, there's a lot of laughs that you'd be surprised where they're coming from.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I look forward to reading it, and I will definitely put the link on our website so that individuals can, certainly find it. But I do appreciate your time, and like I said, this will be available, our chat for Stomach Cancer Awareness Month, which is so important, November every year. And like I said, Steve, I think your words, your encouragement, your story will certainly help so many people, and we really, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I hope so. That's really my reward. When I get these calls or messages from people around the world and country, that really just gives me chills kind of sometimes about how it helps. So I hope that's what the result is.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. And definitely, again, thank you for your time. And it's just great having a chance to chat with you today.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks again, Steve. Take care.